I wasn't able to do a video for International Men's Day because I spent International Men's Day going to see The Red Pill um, at the Soho Hotel. It was really good. So if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend going to see it. But right now, I'm going to respond to an article about International Men's Day that appeared in the New Statesman. So this article's from the New Statesman. It's by Mark Brown and it's entitled International Men's Day Can Combat the Patriarchal Pressure of the Alt-Right. In the online manosphere, the election of Donald Trump is being heralded as a triumph of toxic masculinity. Is it? Well, that's very confusing because I happened to read in Mother Jones not so long ago that let me read some bits of the article that I read in Mother Jones. Even some men's rights activists are worried about a Trump presidency. It says, even men's rights activists. Why do I think he'd make a bad president? Asks Esme, that's Dean Esme. Because he's a loose cannon. You don't know what he's going to do. We have a student loan debt bubble that's going to burst. We have a middle class that's imploding, and Donald Trump is going to fix it all by saying, believe it, baby. Give me a break. Farrell, that's Warren Farrell, says he thinks Clinton is the worst candidate in recent history. And this is obviously Trump's fault. In my lifetime on gender issues from the perspective of understanding and having compassion for men. But Farrell, who has a PhD in political science, still supports Clinton in part because he says that even though I care about men's issues a lot, I care about this country being led by the most competent person. He thinks Clinton's the most competent person? What kind of misogynist is he? Anyway, it's very hard for me, he continues, because Trump does have a clue about what's happening in men's issues, but Trump is the quintessential example of the immature man and men at their worst. That doesn't sound very Trump supportive. So, alright, well, maybe he's a bit of an outlier. Trump talks, this is Paul Elam's quoted in here. Paul Elam, he's Satan, isn't he? Trump talks a lot about building a wall and the outlandish proposition that he's going to stop drugs from entering the country, which is impossible, says Elam. He's wary of a candidate who would further criminalise drugs, leading to a greater incarceration of men. That's weird. He seems to be talking about some sort of men's issue. I didn't know MRAs did that. While Trump hasn't directly promised this, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, one of Trump's surrogates and a potential vice presidential pick, has said he supports the criminalization of marijuana use. That's why both Elam and Esme say the possibility that in the Trump administration Christie might be elevated to a position of power might push them to vote for Clinton. Alright, well, just because it says in the manosphere, the election of Donald Trump has been heralded as a triumph of toxic masculinity. The article obviously doesn't necessarily mean that everyone in the manosphere is heralding Trump's election as a triumph of toxic masculinity. It must just mean that there are some that are heralding Donald Trump as a triumph of toxic masculinity. It's confusing because it sounds like this generalization applies to all of them. But I suppose I do that as well, don't I? I occasionally, you catch me saying something about feminists, and I don't necessarily mean all feminists think this, just a great number do. So, here in the interest of balance, are some feminists I like. This is Karen DeCrow in 1981 said, just as the Supreme Court has said that women have the right to choose whether or not to be parents, men should also have that right. Men should not automatically have to pay for a child they don't want. It's the only logical feminist position to take. Here's Wendy McElroy. Those who use the big lie of rape culture to promote their politics have more in common with rapists than they know. Both use the pain and fear of women to their own advantage. That's Wendy McElroy there, who also spoke up on fathers' rights. This is Katie Roif. Although it may infringe on the right to comfort, unwanted sexual attention is part of nature. To find wanted sexual attention, you have to give and receive a certain amount of unwanted sexual attention. Clearly, the truth is that if no one was ever allowed to risk offering unsolicited sexual attention, we would all be solitary creatures. And then there's Camille Parlier. We've allowed the sexual debate to be defined by women, and that's not right. Men must speak, and speak in their own voices, not voices coerced by feminist moralists. And here's Donna Laframboise, who says, in order for the racism analogy to work with feminists, it would have to be true that women, not men, were dying 8 years sooner than their spouses. Young females committing suicide at a rate 5 times greater than young males. Women, not men, were suffering more from alcoholism, violence, and homelessness. And females, not males, were 20 times more likely to wind up in a prison cell. A true male supremacist society, unless it were both breathtakingly stupid and hopelessly incompetent, would have ensured long ago that women outnumbered men in all the categories we've just examined. So there we go. I've made generalizations about feminists, and there's some feminists that those generalizations don't apply to. So we all make generalizations, don't we? Everyone makes generalizations, without exception. Today is International Men's Day, which focuses on the campaign to reduce the male suicide rate, as well as the need to foster a better sense of physical and mental well-being among men and improve relations between the sexes. According to the Office of National Statistics in the UK, men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. The campaign against living miserably, or CALM, aims to combat this growing problem. They suggest that a contributing factor to this statistical imbalance could be men feeling less able than women to express emotion and admit to vulnerability. No, you made a mistake there. It's not that men can't admit to vulnerability, it's that men have no vulnerability because we live in a patriarchy and therefore they all have power. And the whole society is geared to them getting exactly what they want. So they're not vulnerable at all. You made a mistake there. It's not that they can't admit to vulnerability, it's they don't have any. Because they've got it easy. That's the easy setting, you see. It's the easy setting. When you're born a man, you have everything all laid out for you. On their website, it states, we believe there is a cultural barrier preventing men from seeking help, as they're expected to be in control at all times. Expected to be in control at all times. And this reminds me of part of a video I done a couple of weeks ago, I think, called Joe Todd's Training School for Men. So I just want to play a little clip of that for you to hear again, if you heard it the first time. And if you didn't, as a little teaser to maybe entice you into watching the whole thing. Because I'm quite proud of that one. And a lot of the issues it raises are fairly key to things that are raised in this article. He did fail, though, to leave the house while trying to take his time out, choosing instead a utility room. He then blamed his partner for continuing the argument with no acknowledgement of his choosing not to follow the timeout rules. It was her failure that resulted in pushing back. Choosing is always heavily emphasized when talking about the perpetrator. You know why that is, don't you? Yes, it's our old friend, the melodrama diagram. I have had another character in there. She knows about fallen women. Fallen women do show some vice, but only because they have been corrupted by a villain who is a hyper agent. A fallen woman still is a hypo agent because her vice is not really her own. It's vice is inherited from somebody else. But the point is, of course, that the hero and villain are both hyper agents because they have choice. Everything that they do and their actions are choices of theirs. And the thing about the hypo agent is the hypo agent can receive sympathy, whereas the hyper agent can only receive judgment. The meso agent, which is how I prefer for us all to be seen, can receive empathy. Whereas a hyper agent has power and a hypo agent is helpless, a meso agent has influence, but at the same time he's also subject to influences outside of his control. If you remember Sebastian, who near the end of his course was assuring them that not only did he now know that his behaviour is unacceptable, now he knows it's totally and utterly unacceptable, so he's obviously trying to please them, that the course was valuable to him. He says repeatedly, it was always a choice, my choice to be like that. That's what he's learned on the course. That's obviously something that's very heavily emphasised on the course, is everything that you do and all the consequences of what you do is your choice. If you're trying to force yourself to my utility space, and I don't want you in there because I don't want to get violent, and that's what I'm pushing you away. For example, I'm not hitting you. I'm not trying to pick a fight with you. I'm just pushing you away, Majid, towards the end of the program. They're saying, oh, he blames her when it was clearly him. It's clearly his mistake for not leaving the house. He's been told he's supposed to leave the house. That doesn't change the fact that she's pursuing him. Again, very weird for the supposed victim to pursuing the supposed abuser, isn't it? Then again, of course, being the victim, she's not choosing to pursue him to the utility room. He is choosing not to leave the house. Quite key. There's a reason why they're putting the emphasis on that. He's choosing not to leave the house, but there's no emphasis on her choosing to pursue him to the utility room. She can't help pursue him to the utility room. She's a victim. Okay, so that was a clip from Joe Todd's training school for men, and actually there's a lot more about being in control, exerting self-control towards the end. I know it is a long video. It is the longest one I've done, so it's like an hour and 50 minutes each length. But it touches upon a lot of the issues I raised here, and issues about expecting of men an absurd level of self-control while expecting no self-control for women at all. And failure to be seen as such equates to weakness and a loss of masculinity. But who is it telling men they shouldn't verbalise their emotions or succumb to doubts, anxieties and fears? Now I think that whilst one should be able to acknowledge one's fears, one certainly shouldn't let one's fears rule you, because if your fears rule you, then you lead to prejudice. So I think there's actually a lot to be said in favour of being in control and master of one's fears. The answer is other men. Right, that's why it's called the manosphere. So it's men on the internet. Is that true? I think it might be, because I found an article by a man, and he's like being really negative about International Men's Day. Some part of a manosphere called Huffington Post. I think that must be part of the manosphere. Let's see what it says in the Huffington Post. International Men's Day, you cannot be serious. It's by Professor Binna Kandola. So, yeah, it is a man. And what's he saying? He thought that the International Men's Day was some kind of ridiculous joke. He said that highlighting the achievements of men doesn't just happen just once a year, it happens every single day. And even though it's International Men's Day, he's talking about lots of things that are happening to women, like there not being enough women CEOs, and women earn less to the pound than men do, and saying these are all big issues. So he's kind of saying that men's vulnerabilities and insecurities and doubts shouldn't be expressed, isn't he? Look at this, he's actually saying, you get the point, it's blindingly obvious that more work needs to be done for women rather than their male counterparts. The balance of power is overwhelmingly held by men. So he sees men as very strong and women as weak. This manosphere must be full of people like this that see men as strong and women as weak. Terrible place it is. What's this place? Huffington Post, let's remember. Yeah, I can see how he's stopping men from admitting to their vulnerability, because he's making them think about how vulnerable women are. He's saying they should stand up for their wives, daughters and mothers, and rather than they should stand up for themselves. And he's saying that drawing attention to men's issues is energy wasted. On the internet, there is access to a whole network of websites that tell insecure and unhappy men that they can gain empowerment if they gang up on the girls. It is filled with men aggressively policing the boundaries of what is acceptable for both sexes. He's not wrong, you know, there are a lot of men policing what men and women can't do. In Cosmopolitan, there's 25 things guys have really got to stop doing right now. And that's by Alex Reese. He's a man. And there's 10 things men need to stop doing to become gentlemen again. Well, that's nice to go by Elite Daily, but I'm sure it's a man. It's in the Good Men Project. Another one from the Good Men Project, 10 Things Good Men Should Never Do in a Relationship. And that's by James Michael Sammer. He's a man. And Good Men Project, pro-feminist website, of course. Don't be that guy. 5 things some dudes need to stop doing to women. That's on Upworthy. And this is written by a man as well. His name's John Montara. I didn't realise that the manosphere included Upworthy and the Cosmopolitan, but I suppose it does. That must be all part of the manosphere as well. It's full of men policing what men can do. There doesn't seem to be a lot of policing of what women can do. There does seem to be some policing of what women can do from other women on those sites, like stop apologising, for example. Why women must stop apologising. I've seen a lot like that. And I have also seen a lot of articles policing what men can do written by women, but we're not talking about that today because it's International Men's Day. We're talking about how men hurt men, not women. It's not actually International Men's Day. International Men's Day was yesterday, as I'm recording now, and it'd probably be the day before yesterday by the time this gets uploaded. But I was, of course, watching The Red Pill on Saturday to celebrate International Men's Day. I was watching The Red Pill in Soho. So a big shout out to any of the friends there I met, and especially the ones I went drinking with afterwards. Men's rights activists, or MRAs, line up to tell men that it's women who are making them unhappy, that it's they who are discriminated against. Men are told that without power to influence women, they are nothing. Clearly, he's never looked into MGTOW. MGTOW being men that specifically have chosen not to see their self-worth on their power to influence women in any way, because they no longer look for women to validate their self-worth. According to this online manosphere, which includes the right-wing news website Breitbart, feminism is cancer. Oh yeah, I wonder why Breitbart's saying that. Why would Breitbart be saying that feminism is cancer? Actually, feminism is cancer is a really Milo Yiannopoulos has coined that, his own personal catchphrase. He has used it occasionally in Breitbart articles. He's also used it in talks on campuses, including a talk where he was sharing a panel with Julie Bindel, who he referred to as his second favourite feminist. I don't know how many he knows, but Julie Bindel to be your second favourite. I think after Christina Hoff Summers, Julie Bindel. How many do you know, Milo? 3. Julie Bindel's pretty cancerous herself. He's second wave cancer. It's about a 7-minute clip. If I could do the whole thing, I'll do a commentary on it. Cause I have got observations about the clip where Milo is brown nosing Julie, but another time. Actually, it does illustrate where Milo is coming from when Milo says feminism is cancer, because it seems that Milo isn't actually really reacting to the misandry, because if he was, he would identify Julie Bindel as cancer as well. For him to have made a distinction between the third wave and the second wave, by which Julie's alright and the third wave isn't, it's quite clear that what Milo is actually offended by is censorship and silencing. He doesn't mind how hateful Julie is, as long as people can reply to her, as long as she is capable of having an argument with the people she disagrees with, rather than silencing them and saying you can't say that, and no platform, anything like that. He doesn't actually have a problem with misandry per se. He has a problem with men not having the right to reply. And actually, I kind of agree with him, because back in the 90s, I used to have a lot of rows with feminists that I wound up dating as a result. And we used to like the rows. We used to like how heated the rows got. feel like the modern wave isn't capable of engaging. The trump card for the second wave, though, it has to be said, was date rape. That was the discussion on which men had no right to have an opinion. Well, that and abortion to a certain extent, but I kind of accepted that at the time. I accepted that right up until the point that I was asked, could you please have an opinion on this one? And I thought, oh shit, yeah, I think I should have a right to have an opinion on this because it's mine. But I had to be told that I should be having an opinion on it by the woman whose womb it was. As by association are the feminine values of empathy, concern, and self-awareness. Kitty laugh there, just thrown in as a little tribute to RBK, wherever he is now. Bring it back, for God's sake. Miss RBK, and I miss his use of the kitty laugh. Appropriate moment. Yeah. Okay. So what are we saying here? That empathy, concern, and self-awareness are feminine values, are they? I see. Right. Because women are more likely to receive empathy than men are. People are more likely to be concerned about women than they are to be concerned about men. I'm really not sure women have more self-awareness than men do. I don't know how we're determining feminine values. I mean, we could not. I mean, we could be this is a feminine masculine meanings of feminine masculine that are completely independent of the sexes, right? As I say, we could be talking about just feminine masculine from a yin and yang perspective. In which case, I suppose that we could certainly say empathy is a receptive quality and therefore it's feminine. But I don't think it's a feminine quality that women have more of than men. So this is why I'm saying, we're saying feminine there. It's a meaning of feminine that is independent of sex, but more mystical. That aside, concern I can understand because there we're talking about feminine concern. We're talking about risk aversion and even vicarious risk aversion when we're talking about children and other women. They'll be the ones that say you make sure. I suppose even to a certain extent, there's there can be maternal anxiety for men as well, particularly if it's their son. Saying things like, "Don't go fast, right? Will you when you're out there? You're off driving." And you relate, he goes, but it's more important that you get there in one piece. And there is maternal concern, which is vicarious risk aversion. Yeah, I'm not sure vicarious risk aversion is the only form of concern you can have. I think in terms of well-being, I think men are the ones that see themselves as protectors. So seeing yourself as a protector is a form of concern as well. It's just not a form of concern that involves don't do that because you get hurt. It's more in terms of don't worry, I'll protect you. But it's two different responses to concern. It's not a difference in the levels of concern. It's two different ways of dealing with concern. And of course, it's concern that in heavily patriarchal cultures, I don't want to call it patriarchal, that's what they are patriarchal, in that the male as protector role is very heavily emphasized. Like Islam, the concern is to such an extent that women can't leave the house without an escort, which is where the concern starts getting controlling. All those behaviours are caused by an inordinate amount of concern, and the inordinate amount of concern by the males as well as the females for women. So concern isn't always a good thing. I think empathy is a very important thing, but as I say, I don't think it's specifically women. I don't think women are better at empathy than men are. Because if they were, they wouldn't have to keep saying men should express their emotions more. If you were that empathic, we wouldn't need to express our emotions. You just know. You just intuitively know something is wrong. And we wouldn't have to express it. We wouldn't have to do a theatrical display of our emotions for you to know we're having them. And finally, self-awareness. No, I don't think women are self-aware. And not more self-aware than men by any rate. One of the issues with men see themselves as hyper agents, women see themselves as hypo agents, is that is not conducive to self-awareness because it's not conducive to reflective practice, and therefore you're not self-reflecting. It was an interesting thing. I was talking to a male psychologist. I mean, he was both male and a psychologist, but he was a psychologist in male psychology. Dr. John Barry, just the other day, the day before yesterday now, on International Men's Day. And he was looking into what was preferred in terms of therapy. What therapies are preferred by women and what therapies are preferred by men? And he said, what do you think it's likely to be in terms of drug therapy? Which genders do you think is going to prefer drug therapy? I said, well, you know, I've got two models in my head and they're pulling me in two different directions. One model is that giving drugs is, of course, a very mechanistic way of looking at humans, isn't it? Is you're thinking about the hardware rather than the software, because drugs is part of the hardware. You're thinking, oh, there's chemicals and they're going to neuroreceptors, and that's very hardware way of looking at the brain. You're looking at the brain rather than looking at the mind when you talk about drugs. And of course, because it's hardware, it's quite a masculine way of looking at the brain. To look at it as a biological entity rather than a mimetic entity. That's quite a masculine way of looking at the brain. And yet, at the same time, because women see themselves as hypo agents, whereas men see themselves as hyper agents, taking drugs is having something done to you, whereas the talking therapy is doing something. So actually, you know, the hyper agency, hypo agency model would suggest that women prefer drugs. He said it is women prefer drugs. I liked the way you thought. I liked the way that you went through two different models to see what it could be. So, yeah, and I don't think that leads to self-awareness, does it? Taking drugs is one of the therapies for a mental illness that doesn't lead to self-awareness, whereas a talking therapy is, because talking therapy works on the mind, whereas drugs just work on the brain. So there's a difference in the brain and the mind. Just as there's a difference in the computer and the software you have on the computer. Status in front of your fellow man is all. Existing as an internet phenomena, MRAs divide men into alpha males and beta males. Alpha males get what they want, be it sexually or otherwise. Beta males are second best, lack power, are compromised. The only way to escape your beta status is to keep getting better at expressing your masculinity in an overt and aggressive way. Oh, is this true? Tell you what, I'll go and have a look at that. A Voice for Men. I've heard A Voice for Men is one of those sites that's run by MRAs. A Voice for Men is the men's rights site that was created by men's rights activist Paul Elam. Oh, so what is a Zeta male anyway? I want to talk about alpha and betas. Zeta males, what's that about? The problem with the idea of alpha and beta males, they are talking about, look, is that the traits are partially based on superiority and inferiority, and they're actually rather constricting and come with the standard restrictions of manhood. The inability to show emotions, you must raise a family and be the breadwinner, etc. You are given a code of conduct, and how well you do determines your worth as a man and as a human being. Traditionally speaking, you either played the game or you forfeit by default. There weren't many options, and even alpha males were stuck in their role. Especially when you see the alternative freedoms other people have. One of the few things feminism got right was the abundance of options that it gave to women. Now that men are starting to analyse all this more objectively, many are coming to a completely different view of their roles. When looking in comparison, men have started to decide that how much life sucks as a man. Now a growing number of men want options too. And so the Zeta male begins to rise from the rubble of the shattered romanticising of traditional masculinity. Zeta masculinity is more self-taught and defiant to all traditional social structures. Zeta theory tends to be the option of abstain from the game. You don't forfeit, but you also aren't playing. Zeta males have no intention of bending to the will of society for gender-based purposes and opt instead for self-preservation. This is not an absence of morality or ethics, but rather breaking out. Huh. Well, that's odd. It sounds to me like what this person here is talking about. He describes himself as Zeta male, although I know that Paul Elam has also spoken about the Zeta male.
The Zeta male.
The Zeta male.
The Zeta male.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Seems it's offering an alternative to the ideas of alpha and beta male.
He has no allegiance to tradition, nostalgia for the past, and in fact is charged with plotting a new course. He cannot be shamed into control or intimidated into silence or seduced into capitulation. He doesn't fit in the classic hierarchy and would gladly bring it down in the name of his cause. When someone says he needs to act like a real man, he smiles and says, "No, thank you." He doesn't seek power but justice, and he has one overarching feature largely absent in the world of men around him. He cares about those lost young men who were ambushed coming out of the womb, and he will strive to make himself an example, living proof that there are other roads to take than the ones that lead to self-hatred and self-destruction.
So that's the escape from being a beta or an alpha that Paul offers. Does that sound like the description in the article? The only way to escape your beta status is to keep getting better at expressing your masculinity in an overt and aggressive way.
He doesn't seek power but justice, and he has one overarching feature largely absent in the world of men around him. He cares about those lost young men who were ambushed coming out of the womb, and he will strive to make himself an example, living proof that there are other roads to take than the ones that lead to self-hatred and self-destruction.
I don't think it does, doesn't it? Mind you, I have seen some men on the internet express their masculinity in an overt and aggressive way. For example, there's this guy.
Shut the fuck up! I mean it. If you identify as a men's rights activist, I am not wasting any time engaging with you. I am just going to have fun and get it out of my system and entertain my actual audience by pointing out what a bunch of pathetic fucking losers you are.
The Red Pill is a famous subreddit which provides support, reading lists and encouragement to men who wish to resist the gynocracy. The sidebar on the page links to a web page with a banner stating "Feminism is man-hate, expose it," which sets out how to refute criticism of the MRA ideas. Now, I happen to know that the MRM is not very supportive of the subreddit Red Pill. It's not specifically a men's rights activist site. It's a forum where lots of men meet to discuss issues with women. Some of them may well be men's rights activists, some of them may be MGTOW. There may be some PUAs on there. It's more of a Mos Eisley, really. However, the link that it's linking to, the article it's linking to, isn't quite how it's described there. It does, in fact, have that headline, but it's a reblogging of a MGTOW post originally, and it's actually very, very useful. And it's not about arguments, how to deal with arguments against the MRM or the MRA ideas. It's actually arguments for dealing with shaming tactics. Because trying to speak about men's issues means that you often get silenced with attempts to shame you, with charges of being bitter, or being scared of women, or being oversensitive and a crybaby, or being immature, or that you are scary in some way, or perhaps you're possibly gay, or a wimp, and that you hate women, that you're crazy, or you're just ugly, you can't get laid, or you'll never find a woman behaving like that. What's very interesting about all these shaming tactics is most of them rely on traditional roles expected of men. So in fact, that's a little article of how to stand up to bullies. In fact, how to stand up to people like that shut the fuck up man, who, if you aren't familiar with him, is Angry Aussie, who doesn't like MRAs at all. He may even be a male feminist. The red pill meme has its origins in the 1999 film The Matrix, where Keanu Reeves' character is offered a choice between two pills, one that will allow him to see the world as it really is, and one that will allow him to stay insulated in the fantasy. The red pill, in this case, is the truth, that the world is stacked against men by women. The red pill also gives its name to a 2016 documentary on MRAs that was eventually funded via Kickstarter after an intervention from Breitbart. This shouldn't be taken as meaning that Breitbart were the paymasters. The footage was already in existence by the time Breitbart started doing the fundraising. This article here is in The Guardian, hence balanced within speech marks. What happened is Casey J, who made the film, found it very difficult to fund her film because the feminists were shocked that it was going to be balanced rather than a hit piece, and promptly withdrew their funding. She said she started to see a bias towards women's films and against men's. There are no categories for men's films that apply for grants, though there are several for women's and minorities. I submitted the film to human rights categories and rejected by all of them. Then eventually it was put on Kickstarter and promoted by Breitbart, where it managed to achieve its funding target. She went into a public spat with David Futrell, who was objected to her giving ear to the men's rights movement. I don't know who David Futrell is. He's a fat neckbeard who lives in his mother's basement and harasses women online, I believe. You hear about those, don't you? I think he's one of those. I don't think he actually identifies as an MRA, though. He just fits the stereotypical description. I think he identifies as a male feminist. Breitbart don't identify as MRAs either. The only reason they were supporting the film was because they have a very strong opinion about censorship and about free speech. They're very much against censorship and they're very much in favour of free speech, so they wanted the film to go ahead. They thought it was a valuable contribution to discussion. Manosphere is a series of attitudes and ideas spread across the web like used tissues on a teenage boy's bedroom floor. See, that's an interesting use of metaphor, isn't it? Like used tissues spread across a teenage boy's bedroom floor. The idea is that the manosphere is shameful. It's a cause of great shame, as is the tissues on a teenage boy's bedroom floor, because that's also shameful, because masturbation is something all boys should feel ashamed of. Is it? Is that what you're telling us? I find this very ironic. In an article that's supposedly on men's rights and giving men a sense of self-worth, it's replicating that idea that masturbation is something to be ashamed of, which is a problem that masturbation has always had. And one of the reasons that masturbation is something that we're made to feel ashamed of is because you're a loser if you masturbate, aren't you? That's why we call people wankers. You wank a tosspot. The idea is that if you masturbate, if that's your way of sexual release, it means you're not somebody who can get girls, and you're not using your seed productively. You're not sowing your seed productively. Yeah, and we all do it. Even the Pope does it. I expect. We all do it, and it's something that we're made to feel ashamed of. And this article was supposedly about men and boys being able to express themselves and over International Men's Day, and what a bad job that the MRM are doing, or the manosphere in general. He is conflating all of the manosphere together, which is a mistake anyway. What a bad job they're doing of helping men express themselves, and then they hear this cheap little shot at shaming boys for masturbation, which is a perfectly normal and healthy thing to do. And by doing that, he is reinforcing the idea that a boy is only successful, only has self-worth, if he's got a girlfriend. Once you've got a girlfriend, you don't need to masturbate, do you? Unless you won't put it out. And he'd be against that as well. He'd be against boys putting pressure on the girlfriend to put out, but he's also going to be in favour of shaming them about masturbation. Well done. Well done. Well done, Mark Brown. Well done for recognising the need to foster a better sense of physical and mental well-being amongst men. It has its specialist sites, but is spread as much through forum posts, YouTube comments, Twitter accounts, and other below-the-line interactions. It follows you in around the internet. It will find you if you speak out. Here's a little Facebook message I got from Rose Garston talking about somebody finding you if you speak out. Honey Badger Group be next if you report any of my content. Up to you, just be aware I'll make sure I forward your name along as responsible for MRAs losing their pages, tit for tat and all that. You reported my page first, you even gloated in fact. Now I do the same as tens of pages you enjoyed bite the dust. Equality, Rose Garston. I don't know if you know who Rose Garston is, but she was the admin of a Facebook page called Men's Rights Activism, and she's an anti-MRA. I didn't report her page at all. I don't know. I think I know one or two people that did. Not specifically. I can't remember who they were, but I know some people said that they reported the page for being hate speech, and I think it may even have been some of the feminists on there, because I saw some of the feminists say, "So this is just hateful." Get into arguments and get deleted automatically. She has this habit. It's quite amusing actually. She has a habit of deleting comments she doesn't like, but responding to them and then deleting them, which means that left with entire threads that look like she's shouting at herself because she's deleted the person she's arguing with. And other people get confused. Go, I don't know what you having go at me. And she goes, no, I wasn't having a go at you. I was having go at the person I've deleted. She confuses all her members as well by this strange behaviour she has. No, I didn't. I didn't. I had nothing to do with reporting her site. But when it got removed, I wasn't displeased, I have to say, as she had dragged my name through the mud. And I'm not going to make any accusation about her specifically, but I know other feminists have got in contact with friends and family of other men's rights activists that I know, and made allegations about them, false allegations about them hating women, and have managed to lose people jobs by making anonymous phone calls to their employers, telling them what terrible people they are. So to say that men's rights activists that go around tracking down feminists to harass them, it's not calling kettle black. The insult of choice for this angry white male community is cuck. I was definitely sitting next to a black guy on Saturday. I'm pretty sure I was sitting next to a black guy. I know the lights are out and the film was on, but I could not look at him and tell he wasn't white. Why are you saying white? Why are you excluding a goodly proportion of the MRM by saying we're all white? We're not all white. I am, more or less white. None of us are all white, are we? We're all mixed race, really. We didn't go back far enough. That's silly nonsense. Race. Yeah, the races seem to bring up. Making invisible those MRAs that were ethnic minorities. Appalling. Derived from cuckold, a word which has existed since the 13th century. Its literal meaning references a submissive man sexually cuckolded by a woman. That's a really unhelpful definition. What a cuckold is somebody who's been cuckolded. Is it really? You haven't really explained what cuckolding is. So the word cuckold originates from the word cuckoo, because it's somebody has laid their eggs in your nest. What it means is a cuckold is a medieval term for a victim of paternity fraud. That is somebody who's bringing up children that aren't theirs because their wife has been secretly seeing other men. So actually, the word cuckold is a 13th century form of victim blaming men who are victims of paternity fraud. It's a way of shaming men and saying you have failed as a husband. You failed to keep your wife satisfied, and you're naive and stupid, and she's pulled the wool over your eyes, and you should be ashamed of that. You should be ashamed of the fact that your wife prefers other men to you. I mean, actually, I'm quite opposed to the insult cuck, quite frankly. So some interesting things about cuckolds. It was believed that cuckolds go mad. Was this a magical thing that cuckolds went mad? But Shakespeare gives us a bit of a clue in Maywives of Windsor. Maywives of Windsor, Master Ford, isn't actually being cuckolded, but he thinks he is. His wife and his wife's friend are mutually trying to play a trick on Falstaff, who's trying to seduce both of them, and at the same time trying to play a trick on him because he's a jealous husband. So they test his jealousy by leading him on to think that she's having an affair, and he does go mad. And he goes mad because of the web of lies. And it seems that the whole idea of horn mad, which is a cuckold was supposed to go horn mad and develop horns, he was so mad, was actually a medieval recognition of gaslighting, and the effect of gaslighting. Gaslighting being lied to in such a way that the suspicion itself is thrown back onto you in terms of shame. So surely you must remember this. Oh, you're always getting things wrong. Oh, you always make these kind of mistakes. Oh, you're crazy. You're always suspecting me of something. So he starts going, oh, really? When you're having a web of lies spun, it's like somebody's creating a false reality around you. Because all the lies don't quite add up. And that makes you doubt everything. Makes you doubt the nature of reality itself. And that's gaslighting. You start to go crazy. You start to go crazy because you've been told you're crazy. Told you're crazy until you go crazy. I mean, Hamlet in the same way goes mad because he's lied to. It's the web of lies that drives Hamlet mad as well. I think it's quite a misandrous word to use. It's not It's not the men's rights movement that do it. It does exist in the manosphere. I'm going to say now, I think the manosphere is a really dumb term. I don't like it. I mean, it's used as a sort of collective term to describe the male portion of what I would say is the conversational ghetto that is politically incorrect thought. And so it does include the alt-right, and the alt-right do use the word cuck, but men's rights activists don't generally. It would seem to be against our ethos. It's hardly a name that suggests that you advocate for compassion towards men, really. The term manosphere was originally used by feminist sites like Jezebel to refer to all these different sites that had men getting together and talking about men's things, which is why it's a broad catch-all term that includes your PUAs and your MRAs and your MGTOWs, 4chan, Gamergate, and the alt-right. It's why it's such a loose collection of randoms that don't really belong together, because it's not a term that we've chosen ourselves. But we've wound up using it, borrowing it, just because sometimes you need to have a word to describe that sort of loose conglomerate of things, because it is a community in a way. I think of it as the barbarians. We're the barbarians. They're the empire in their cities. We're outside the city walls. Lots of different tribes that have to get along together to a certain extent, because the empire is bigger than we are. Now it is used to emasculate others. Yeah, it always was used to emasculate others. That it hasn't changed its usage at all. The only difference is the people using it don't know the origin of it anymore. But throughout history, it was used as an emasculating insult. In this land of men aggrieved at what they feel they have lost, what we feel we have lost. Have we lost it or not? Now this is actually quite ironic, because there are some groups in the manosphere that, I mean, yeah, Return of the Kings. Return of the Kings are masculinists, I guess they call them. But the PUAs. PUAs in terms of lifestyle choice. I mean, they're masculinists in terms of, or neo-traditionalists, possibly. Masculinists or neo-traditionalists. Although neo-traditionalist is a contradiction in terms, obviously. How can you be new and traditional at the same time? In terms of their ideology. And I think they do think they've lost something, because they talk about wanting it back. But we're of a different school of thought. We don't think we have lost anything. We don't think we ever had the power to begin with. So we're not complaining about something we've lost at all. We're saying, actually, no, that's never been the case. Men have never had all this control. That was part of the male ego to think that we had all this control. It fed our ego. But in fact, we were trapped in a treadmill. So that's interesting. See, I don't think we have lost anything. And it sounds like the author doesn't think we've lost anything either, because he says what they feel they have lost. So that's interesting. Does that mean that the author doesn't believe in patriarchy theory? Because if he believed in patriarchy theory, he would agree that we have lost something. It's only because we don't subscribe to patriarchy theory that we don't feel we've lost anything. Pick-up artists, or PUAs, ply their trade convincing desperate men to exchange money for the secrets of getting into women's knickers. Not content with shaming boys for masturbation, now shaming boys for trying to get into women's knickers. Is it all sex then? All sex is shameful. Sex with women is shameful, or wanting sex with women is shameful, and masturbation is shameful. And it's particularly shameful if you need help. doing it if you're desperate. He's doing such a good job, isn't he? He's doing such a good job of, what was it he was saying right at the beginning? Fostering a better sense of physical and mental well-being among men. Look. Men complain of the friend zone.
It's never gonna happen. What? You and Rachel. What? Why not? Because you waited too long to make your move, and now you're in the friend zone.
No. I'm not in the zone.
Oh, Ross, you're mayor of the zone.
Look, I'm taking my time, all right? I'm laying the groundwork. Yeah, I mean, every day I get just a little bit closer to,
Priesthood! Look, Ross, I'm telling you, she has no idea what you're thinking. And if you don't ask her out soon, you're gonna end up stuck in the zone forever.
I will. I'm just... See, I'm waiting for the right moment. What? What, now?
Yeah.
On top of old Smoky, all covered with snow. Now you all have to sing here with us. I lost my true lover for courting so slow. Courting's a pleasure, for courting's a pleasure.
Hey, are you dating any Russians I should know about?
Well, Minskov has proposed, and he's very sweet and wealthy. But the age difference is too great. I'm 28 and he's 81.
Oh, that is big.
So when I'm 50, he'll be 103.
That's a bad age for men. They slow up a lot.
Oh, and Voskovec has made his intentions clear. But he deals in herring, and he always smells of herring. Do you know he even bought me herring-scented cologne?
Really? That's probably why the cat follows you around.
Love is everything, Boris. I want to meet some man and scale the heights of passion. Some man who embodies the three great aspects of love: intellectual, spiritual, and sensual.
Well, there's not too many of us around, but it can be done.
So many women settle cheaply.
I know, poor things.
They marry for money.
Money. Well, money.
But I tell you, I feel as though my life would be wasted if I didn't love deeply with a man whose mind I respected, whose spirituality equaled mine, and who had the same, lustful appetite for sensual passion that drives me insane.
You're an incredibly complex woman.
I guess you could say I'm half saint, half whore.
Here's hoping I get the half that eats.
Boris.
Yes.
I have a confession to make.
Yes?
Ever since you and I were little children, I've been in love with your brother, Ivan.
Oh, that's only that. Ivan? You're kidding. He can barely write his name in the ground with a stick.
He has true animal magnetism.
Animal magnetism? All that talk about some perfect love and you're hot for Ivan?
He kissed me.
Any place I should know?
It warmed the cockles of my heart.
That's just great. Nothing like hot cockles.
I think he's going to ask me to marry him.
But he's a gambler and a drinker. He's got a Neanderthal mentality. Don't get me wrong, I love him like a brother, just not one of mine.
Take me anywhere, I don't care, don't care, don't care. And in the darkened underpass I thought, oh God, my chance has come at last. But a strange fear gripped me and I just couldn't ask.
Maybe I need a doctor. Stop it.
I better go. I'm on earlies tomorrow.
It's all right for you. You've got Mr. Perfect keeping you right.
He's not even real, just a stupid dream when I was a kid.
No, I wasn't talking about him.
What, Rory? How have I got Rory?
Yeah, how's she got me?
He's not mine.
No, I'm not hers.
Oh, come on. Seriously, it's got to be you two. Oh, cut to the song. It's getting boring.
Nice thought. Okay, but completely impossible.
Yeah, impossible.
I'd love to. He's gorgeous. He's my favourite guy. He's, you know,
A
gay.
friend? I'm not gay.
Yes, you are.
No. No, I'm not.
Of course you are. Don't be stupid. In the whole time I've known you, when have you shown the slightest interest in a girl?
Penny in the air.
I mean, I've known you for, what, 10 years? I've seen you practically every day. Name one girl you've paid the slightest bit of attention to. Oh my God, Rory!
And the penny drops. Catch you later, time boy.
I had to watch him try and get you undressed. We were friends, that was as far as it went. I used to walk you home sometimes, but it meant nothing to you. Cause you were so popular. Deborah, do you recall? Your house was very small, with wood chip on the wall. When I came round to call, you didn't notice me at all.
Men don't need feminism to express their vulnerability. They need art, they need music, they need comedy. That's what it's there for. It's always been there for. Because we do find it difficult to talk about vulnerability, man to man or man to woman. That's why we have songs. And that's why we have comedy. And that's why we have drama. Now the friend zone isn't a men's rights issue at all. It's just something that happens. It's just a bunch of shit that happens. And you can understand why. You know, to really feel about somebody in a way that really drives you towards them, you have to get to know them first. And by then it's too late. When it's too late, they've got used to you being a friend. And the risk, because all relationships are a risk, isn't worth taking. There's too much to lose. The longer you leave it, the harder it is. And it's a trap that anyone who's shy can fall into, particularly if they're the one whose role it is to be the initiator, which of course is why it is slightly gendered, because it's our role to be the initiator. Because when your role is to be the initiator, you only got yourself to blame. You only got yourself to blame if you're the initiator and you courted too slow. Girls might go, oh, why doesn't he notice me? Why doesn't he notice me? Why doesn't he notice me? But the guy's got to go, why didn't I do something? Why didn't I do something? Why didn't I do something? It's not a men's rights issue. I'll tell you what it is. Not being able to talk about it. Being told, don't talk about that. Don't talk about that because it makes me feel guilty. If you make me feel guilty, that hurts me. You're hurting me by talking about that. How much do you think you make hurting somebody by not letting them talk about it? You think you're going to help men express their emotions, do you? And you tell them, don't talk about that emotive experience. That emotive experience is a real emotive experience. Don't tell people not to talk about it. Being trapped as a friend who cannot move up to the level of sexual contact. Ask why women don't like nice guys in one breath and then fill the inboxes of women with insults the next. Talk about conflating there. So, the same guy, isn't it? It's like you've done a case study. Same guy who talks to nicely because I'm a nice guy. I can't get girls to like me because I'm a nice guy. Well, it's not as much as they can't get girls to like you. Girls like nice guys, they just don't go with them. Yeah. And do you think and he's the same guy who's doing the insults? Yeah, maybe he is. Maybe he is. Being frustrated can make you bitter. That's what 92 men's rights activists, though. I've said before, it's more likely to be a male feminist. Because the whole nice guy thing, the reason why nice guys aren't attractive, is because they're selfless. They're very considerate. They're awfully considerate of the other person's feelings, and their lack of selfishness means they don't express their own desires. If they don't express their own desires, they don't get anywhere. There is a link. There is a link between being nice and not getting anywhere. I suppose sometimes that might make people bitter. If they're bitter, they might get angry. I mean, you know, even Jarvis back there, he said, because you were so popular. There's a little bit of nastiness there. There's a little bit of bitterness and anger there. You were popular. I wasn't popular. I was nobody. I was the sad puppy that kept following you home from school and carrying you back. Perhaps there is a bit of bitterness and anger there. But you're saying, right at the beginning, you're saying men can't express emotions. You're saying about calm. You're saying men can't express emotions. And then you say, don't express your emotions. Don't express your emotions, they're not the emotions I like. Some of those emotions might involve anger and bitterness. Those emotions too. And one of the reasons why men are expected to hide their emotions is because they do make girls feel uncomfortable. They do make women feel uncomfortable. We have to protect women from our emotions. We're expected to protect women from our emotions. Which is why art was a safety valve. Why song was a safety valve. Why poetry, drama, and comedy was all safety valves for getting stuff off our chest. But if we told the people that were involved, it might make them uncomfortable. It might make them feel guilty. It might make them feel unsafe. A movement that is telling us that our primary concern is making sure that women feel comfortable is not a movement that is telling us we can express our emotions, is it? Because it was keeping women comfortable that made it culturally unacceptable for men to express their emotions in the first place. They are united by the idea that somehow, somewhere, women have gone too far and men are betrayed the status of their sex by losing control. As the election of Donald Trump has shown, the world is full of very angry men. Such men seek to set men against women because that is where the power lies. So saying that somebody else has power encourages you to hate them, does it? So what does feminism do? And feminism keeps telling women that men have all the power. How is that not setting women against men? Bruce V, self-declared king of the PUAs, was in rapture over Trump's election, saying in a blog post, if a man tells you that he voted for Trump, it's safe to say that he is favourable to strong borders and nationalism, masculinity and beautiful women. Bruce V is so gynocentric. Yeah. Of course, this is the problem, of course, by conflating the whole manosphere together, you've moved on seamlessly from talking about MRAs as you were earlier, and they talk about PUAs, because Bruce V is not an MRA. He said very negative things about the MRA, and the MRAs have said very negative things about Bruce V. So, we're really not responsible for what he thinks, and he's not responsible for what we think. Yeah, I'm not going to pick apart a Return of the King's article and try and defend it. I mean, you have misrepresented it a little bit. You've left chunks out. Chunks that are probably quite significant, but they're not chunks I agree with, so I don't really care. On a basic level, you'll be able to get along with this man and build a bond. But if a man opposes Trump, then I have to anticipate him attacking or sabotaging me in the future. I will distance myself from him for my own well-being. Now, here's something that Rouge V is probably actually on the money with, is male feminists are not very good at bonding with other men. And since men are disadvantaged when it comes to making friends anyway, men that find it difficult to bond with other men have particular problems, don't they? However, I think there always will be men that sit against other men. Men that do need to protect women and see all other men as the enemy in that. looked at psychological studies that suggest that women have in-group biases and men do not have in-group biases, and that isn't specific to our feminist culture, it is just cultural among all sorts of cultures. For Rouge, Trump's win is a triumph for toxic masculinity. His presence automatically legitimizes masculine behaviors that were previously labeled sexist and misogynist. The door is opening for a renaissance of masculinity where men can take pride in being men, and the best part of it is that we don't need to wait for Trump to do anything. His victory is more than enough for us to apply our own individual strength in seizing the bull's horns, where we can come out of the politically incorrect closet and assert our beliefs and behaviors. The war on cucks will intensify in a post-Trump world. Rouge views himself as a leader of men, and if you aren't with the men, then you're against them. If you aren't with the men, you're against them. That rather reminds me of this quote by Anne de France. Either you are a feminist or you are a misogynist. There is no box-marked other. Yes, we advocate for compassion for men. That's what we stand for. That's what I stand for. I stand for advocating for compassion for men. If men don't have compassion for men, then they're part of the problem. So yeah, I don't understand why that quote that you've just set up is a problem. Why is it a problem to say, if you aren't with the men, then you're against them? Yeah, somebody needs to stick up for men. And if you're not sticking up for men, then you're against them. It's time we started sticking up for men. Feminists complain that it's derailing when a man says not all men, when they're making generalizations about men that are very negative. I don't like it either. I don't think that men should be going, not all men. You know why? Because they're saying not me. That's what they're saying, not me. They don't give a shit about other men. They should have the actual compassion for other men. They'd be saying hardly any men. Very few men. That demonic version of men that you are describing very, very few men. And you haven't taken the time to get to understand most men at all. Men searching for support fall for the siren call of the online misogynist community, attempting to conceal their vulnerability behind an adversarial identity. Who's trying to conceal their vulnerability? This is the question that we're going to very soon. We're coming to the end of the article very soon. And the question I'm going to be asking is, who is telling men to conceal their vulnerability? They search for a virtual safe space, but the men they choose as their guides do not care about them. Says the man that firstly humiliated teenage boys for masturbating, then humiliated boys and men for desiring women, and then humiliated boys for feeling emotional hurt when they're rejected. And you say that these people don't care about men. Mark Brown, I don't think you care about men. I put it to you now, you don't care about men. I don't know why you're writing this article. These men fetishize control and competition as if you're not competing for a good boy badge from the feminists there. That's why you're throwing all the other men under the bus. To get it. Anything else is unmanly. These men are not their friends. The worst of men do not wreck just the lives of women, they wreck the lives of other men too. But first, just a quick reminder of where we came in at the beginning of this article. International Men's Day can combat the patriarchal pressure of the alt-right. Today is International Men's Day, which focuses on the campaign to reduce the male suicide rate, as well as the need to foster a better sense of physical and mental well-being among men and improve relations between the sexes. The campaign against living miserably suggests that a contributing factor to this statistical imbalance could be men feeling less able than women to express emotion and admit to vulnerability. On their website it states, "We believe there is a cultural barrier preventing men from seeking help, as they are expected to be in control at all times, and failure to be seen as such equates to weakness and a loss of masculinity." But who is it telling men they shouldn't verbalize their emotions or succumb to doubts, anxieties and fears? The answer is other men. So the question is, Is that true? And yes, it is true. I found men online, just researching this article, I found men online that are making it harder for men to express their emotions, their doubts, their fears, their sense of invulnerability. I've made a little list. Professor Binna Kandola, he's one. Alex Reese, he's one. James Michael Sammer, he's one. John Mantara, and whoever it is from Elite Daily that's having articles published in the Good Men Project. David Futrell, Angry Aussie, men's rights activists, or MRAs, line up to tell men that it's women who are making them unhappy. Clearly not, Mark Brown, because I just isolated that you were amongst those who were making men unhappy. And you're a man. So, I'm not saying women exclusively are making men unhappy. However, yeah, there are women that make men unhappy. Women that work for respect, which I quoted a paper of earlier with their DVPP programs. They're working to make men unhappy, and they're women. And Rose Garston is doing her bit to make sure that men stay unhappy, doing her bit to make sure that men can't express their vulnerabilities and anxieties and fears. I think it would be very sexist to assume that women don't contribute to society too. And if it's society that produces the problems that men face, then yes, that society is created by us all, men and women. This is just one blind man. With a much greater understanding of elephants than Mark Brown will ever have. But nevertheless, other opinions are available. Cheerio. Right, epilogue. You're gonna probably hear the washing machine in the background, but screw it, because I want to get this out. So what happens when you edit a video together is you get to the point where you go, okay, that's it, it's all edited, that's happened, I feel that. And you go, I'll make that into a video. And then it starts rendering, and you go, about 5 minutes later, you say, it says 2%. I'm gonna have a nap. Probably gonna take hours, so I'm gonna have a nap. So I had a nap. Of course, what happens when you're asleep is the neurons start firing. And that's when I had a little insight. Firstly, I understood what he was talking about. When he's talking about, the feminine traits of concern and empathy and self-awareness. And I thought, why does he think self-awareness is a feminine trait? Self-awareness isn't a feminine trait at all. As I say, if you see yourself as a hypo agent, you're not encouraged to have reflective practice. And concern isn't. I can see how concern could feasibly be a feminine trait if we're talking about risk aversion, but then of course the whole men as protectors role is about concern as well. So there's two ways of looking at it. Yeah, you can say women, it's womanly to be concerned in a maternal way. It's also masculine to be concerned in a sort of protectorish way. And I really didn't buy into the empathy thing at all. I thought that was a bit of gynolatrous bullshit, for want of a better word. I don't buy into the fact that women are more empathic. I think that's a bit of a myth. Okay, I realise why he's bringing that up. Okay, that's why he's knocking me all right. Because he's knocking out people like Milo. He's really aiming at people like Milo. He said the manosphere, but it's really people like Milo and Roosh he's aiming at, right? He's aiming at the alt-right. He's just conflated the ideas of manosphere and alt-right. And it's about political correctness. Because that's what the alt-right's against, right? Generally, the alt-right's against political correctness, so am I. I'm just not alt-right. And then I got it. I saw into it. What it's about is he thinks if you're against political correctness, it's obviously because you have no concern, you have no empathy, and you have no self-awareness. You don't know how rude you're being. You just think you can be rude to anyone. It doesn't matter. Alright, here's the thing. Here's the thing he doesn't understand. Having concern for one person's set of feelings to the exclusion of other people's set of feelings. Protecting one person's set of feelings is suppressing the feelings of another person. Okay? So the more protected a group is, the more a group has their feelings protected, the less another group can express themselves. So you have to suppress one group's expression to protect another group's feelings. And that's what he doesn't see. And of course I could see, because I was talking about the fact that we've always had songs, we've always had poetry, and we've always had art. And that's been the way that men could express their feelings in a way that women's feelings could be protected. There wasn't the danger that we were going to hurt a girl's feelings if we wrote a song about how much we were hurt in love, because she would never know it was about her. In fact, I remember when Blur wrote Tender, and Tender got me through a really bad breakup that I was heartbroken over. And then the housemate that I was with, he'd sided with my ex-girlfriend for some reason. For gynocentric reasons. He hadn't initially, but he kind of went around to it. So she's talked to him. He said, "Oh yeah, apparently Damon Albarn's ex-girlfriend's really pissed off with him because everyone knows that song's about her and it really upsets her." And he was actually genuinely thinking, "Oh, I should hate Damon Albarn for writing Tender." I don't know to me, he's a bloody artist. What he's supposed to do? What he does do? He's supposed to put his emotions, his emotional actual experiences into his work. Why should we be caring about her feelings more than his right to express himself as a human being? And I love that song as well. Tender's a great song. And then something else clicked. They're not cultural Marxists. I know saying, "Oh, well, they're not cultural Marxists because they're not into Marxism stuff." We've always been saying, "Oh, they're not cultural Marxists." And maybe the second wave were cultural Marxists, and maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's just why the third wave's worse. They're cultural neoliberals. They're cultural neoliberals. You know why? Because women already had all the empathy. And what they're telling us is, the more we care for women, eventually the empathy will trickle down. So we just care more and more for women, and eventually there'll be some empathy for men that will trickle down. And you know what? It's not trickling down. Because that big wine glass at the top, the wine glass that holds the empathy we as a society have for women, is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we have less and less empathy for men. They're not cultural Marxists. They're cultural neoliberals. And that's my final thought. Cheerio.